Hello friends, welcome to the channel One Tech Stop. So in our previous series of videos, we have seen how to set up the domain controller, how to configure the users and computers, how to configure the group policies. So all these services and policies are running from a single domain controller. So now just imagine if the domain controller is down, then in that case, how the users are going to get authenticated to your infrastructure. So in that scenario, it comes as a additional domain controller, which is our today's topic. So before proceeding, please do not forget to subscribe my channel. Thank you. So let's directly dig into our today's topic, additional domain controller and how we can set up and configuration. So what is additional domain controller? Additional domain controller is basically a secondary domain controller which acts as a replica for the primary domain controller. The whatever the users and computers, what are the group policies you have created in the primary domain controller will automatically get replicated to the additional domain controller. So for businesses that have only one domain controller, so for the large organizations or for any organization, if you are having only single domain controller, so below are the consequences that you will face. The first is remote workers will be unable to authenticate. Yani there is no authentication server available in order to log into your domain. Now, application services that use Active Directory authentication will stop functioning. The services will stop. If your domain controller is configured with a DNS, your domain controller is also acting like a DHCP. So all these services will be stopped when your primary domain controller is down. Here, if the AD does DHCP and DNS, these protocols will also fail, which means internet routing will stop working. New workstations logging onto the system will not be able to get their IP addresses, which means they will require manual assignment. So, whichever the new machines are you are trying to log in, the first error you will get while logging in is no authentication server is available. So, yani, it will directly prompt you that there is no server available because your primary domain controller is already down. And if you are already logged into some computer, then uh, it will not get the IP address from the DHCP server because your DHCP server is also in the primary domain controller. So these are the consequences you will face when you are having only one domain controller and if that domain controller is down. So in order to set up the additional domain controller, what are the prerequisites you need? So you need a Windows server, you need a static IP address, you need to decide the name of the server, the domain name, the existing primary domain name you have to assign, and ADDS role. So let's directly go and check our practicals. So I have already configured the machine with a Windows Server 2019. In my previous video, I have already shown how to set up a Windows Server 2019 machine on a virtual box. So you can refer to my previous videos. So I have already set up this one and I have already installed the Active Directory domain services role. This installation also I have shown in my previous videos. So I have already installed the uh, Active Directory domain services role. I have already configured the IP at static IP address. I have already given a name for like ADC. So these all these primary settings I have already shown in the configuration of Windows Server 2019 videos. So let's go directly and make the configuration for making this server as an additional domain controller. If you click on this triangle icon here, you can see that there is an option called promote this server to domain controller. So click on promote this server to domain controller. Now you have to select the option add a domain controller to an existing domain, because we are not creating any new domain. We are adding this server to our existing domain. So click on select. It will ask for username and password. Provide your domain username and password. Now it will show you the available domain controller. Just select this domain and click OK and click next. So just enter the DSRM password. I have already explained in the previous video what is the DSRM password. So let's set this DSRM password. Click on next. Click on next. So here it asks from replicate from. It's asking from where you want to replicate all the services. So I will select DC01 one local. This is my primary domain controller. So I will select this one and click on next. Now these are the folders which is also going to replicate and store in these shared folders. Click on next. Click on next. You can verify all the warnings. The warnings can be ignored. So just click on install. Here the replication is started. Replicating critical domain, setting the computer's DNS. You can see here the updates. Okay, the domain controller will restart now. So let's wait until it restarts. Let's log into our additional domain controller. So let's go to our primary domain controller and check in under the domain controllers option if we have the new additional domain controller is added or not. So go to tools and click on Active Directory users and computers. So under domain controllers, we can see we have ADC available. So now what are the users and computers that are available here? All these users should be available in our new additional domain controller. So let's go to our additional domain controller and go to tools and open Active Directory users and computers. And let's see if we have the users. So we have already got all the users here. So Chris Gale and IT support. So if you go to our primary domain controller also, we have the Chris Gale and IT support. So now let's see the group policies have been applied or not. So let's open the group policy management console, tools, group policy management. Expand the forest, expand the domain, expand the. So as we have seen in our previous videos, we have implemented a few policies related to shared drive and as well as deploying a Chrome software. So all these policies are now replicated to our additional domain controller. So now let's try to create one user under finance department and let's see this user will replicate in additional domain controller or not. So right click, select new and user. So enter the username. I will keep the username as Iron Man. User long name will be I dot man. Next, click on next, click on finish. So here we have a user Iron Man. So we need this user to be now replicated to our additional domain controller. So I will refresh here. Let's go to our additional domain controller ADC. Let's go to users and computers. I have already this open under finance. We don't see any user. Just I will refresh this one. Go to finance and now you will find Iron Man user. That means our the replication between primary domain controller and secondary or additional domain controller is working fine. So I hope guys you have all understood the purpose of additional domain controller. So in our upcoming videos, we will also see like what is the read-only domain controller. So we have already configured our additional domain controller, and we will see like what is the read-only domain controller, and also we will see how we can configure the DHCP failover. So here we don't have any DHCP server because this will not by default install any DHCP server here in additional domain controller. So in order to configure the uh, replication or failover DHCP, we need to manually install and configure the failover. So we will also see what is the DHCP, what is DHCP and how we can configure DHCP failover. So stay tuned for my upcoming videos. I hope you all like this video. Please do not forget to like, comment and subscribe my channel. Thank you so much.